from the Polish
Yes, yes,
team?
it's okay. I'm just starting the recording.
Okay.
At the moment, it already started, and then also you can see the recording of your Jana's wonderful lecture. It's there. It's already there, stored on Teams, so everybody can access it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
I have to shut down my microphone because we are having some renovation things, and you still hear the noise.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's why. Okay.
Okay.
It's like I have to close my windows because we have traffic, a lot of traffic there. Okay. So again, good morning to everybody. I hope that you had your coffee, that you are enough energetic. Yes, if we were in presence, that would be a different, completely different, let's say, completely different situation. Because there is nothing worse than to talk about play in online situation, and then we will talk a bit more about the difference between game and play and some gamification. Okay, do you see the presentation, or do you see yourself in my screen?
We see ourselves now.
Okay,
I
so
can
maybe
see
I can try to do
myself
something
also.
else, because it seems that when there are someone that is going in, I will try to check now.
Yes.
Do you see my screen,
Yes.
my presentation, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I was really glad from yesterday and today's lectures, because somehow they introduce something that I repeated and heard from people before me again and again. That is, what is a city without people? Nothing. So, and the city is not made by stones, or the one that I really like that was made by Professor Francesco Indovina, that the city is the ecosystem of, is the ecological niche of mankind. So this is quite important. In fact, it's the place where we live, where we love, where we eat, where we hate, where, let's say, we spend all our small life. And there is a connection between the fact that the city that we create is a result of interactions. But in the lecture today, I'm going to talk about something else, about the tools that is more related with the fact that when we talk about a city, we talk about space and time. And when we talk about space and time, often as designer, we are moving and switching between what is, utopia and uchronia. And in the being a gaming simulation designer and being an urban planner, these are the keywords of my work, because what we try to do is to understand future development and how we can not influence, maybe even not guide, but understand what could be the future. So this is the most important thing. So when we play, we enter in a world where the rules are pre-established, and you have to follow those rules. But when you enter in this world, you know that you can have some degree of interpretation of these rules. And therefore, the scenario that you are in can be modified by your actions, even following that rules, even changing that rules. And let's say, talking about gaming simulation, I define gaming simulation as machines that can generate physical, social utopia. Because they allowed us to use words that often are based on simulation reality. Like here, this is the utopia by who? Thomas More, of course. And this is a typical representation of utopia. Just I would like just to spend one word about this. When we build ideal world, they are island, usually. They are island with specific borders, with a specific items in, with a specific landscape, and is what we want that place to be. But this is the touch by reality, like any other gaming simulation. So before to go to the definitions, because definitions are boring, I would like to introduce to you some example of gaming simulation. When we talk, I introduced the fact that gaming simulation generates utopia. Utopia, again, is a virtual reality. Since we know these terms, is a virtual reality that we built. So, for instance, many years ago, before me, I was at that time I was a player of that game that was called Nouvelle Vague. There was a game about Venice that we designed in 80s, and then we redesigned, I was one of the co-author in 90s through some specific goals that were to understand what Venice would be from 90s in 10 to 20 years. So in this game, we are talking about Venice. Venice is a real place, but we are building utopia. In this case, utopia doesn't mean that we have no geographical coordinates or something that we can recognize as specific site. But we were able to build a sort of ideal Venice. So that was the utopia, because it was a result of alternative Venice that we tried to put into the game in order to understand what could be the future of this the city, and in order to understand how to make a desirable Venice. This is a game that is quite dear to me, even if it was, let's say, left aside more than 10 years ago, because in 20 years, do you see here some names like Lido, Arsenale, San Marco, Dogana, Giudecca, Mulino Stucchi, Marittima, Piazzale Roma, Santa Marta, Tronchetto. These are specific, important, strategic points in Venice, strategic places. I have to say that unfortunately, our worst scenarios is now completed. All the transformation that we didn't want, but we put in the game for those places actually are on place. Let's say like Mulino Stucchi, instead to become a place that can be shared between the tourist sector and the city for some civic activities, became a big, as you know, for the ones that are in Venice, a big 5-star international hotel. And that Marittima and Santa Marta and Tronchetto actually are in conflict with the population because they are allowed in here the passage of the big cruise ships that completely destroy the perception of historical landscape of Venice. So you see, sometimes playing games, you realize that don't want to create the worst version of your game, but the reality will keep only the worst and make it a reality. Talking about the game itself was quite simple. it was divided into a physical interaction, as you can see here. This was in the Venice International University with the German game designers in the 90s, exactly in the 90s, and a sort of basic software that was working where people can implement some choices. We can have, you know, events, elections, there was some budget, there were some unforeseen events, and so on. So the game itself was a good tool to understand the trend of the city, but it didn't allow us to build the utopia that we wanted to build. That was a good Venice with, you know, an equilibrium and balance between tourism and other sectors, between the civic life and the beauty of the historical city, etc. Just to mention that Venice is a sort of city that in the past reached till close to 200,000 population, now is declining under 50,000. And there are more fictitious population because there are second houses. So in the primary objective of a gaming simulation is not to simulate the real world, okay, but trying to obtain relevant information, creating a simulated world where participants can enter and can play and then can interact. And when we talk about simulated world, of course, as in Venice scenario, we are talking about a scenario, background, or something that is constructed for the purpose of gaming simulation. And also keep in mind, and that will be important for tomorrow, that the main purpose is not, again, to imitate the real world. It can be even something that is metaphorical. It has not to be Venice, we will see later on. So talking about floating cities and utopia. And this is really old because in the 1968, but I will invite you to check with the new proposed urban development in the world, the new cities that are proposed in the world, if it's not, let's say, copying that image. So, but it's true that gaming simulation design is to design an utopia. Okay, let's go to a first definition about gaming simulation. We have a goal when we try to design or we try to apply to use a gaming simulation, that is to define, to solve, or design a situation that is, again, looking to the future in order to not understand potentiality of development, but also to understand the trends that in that scenario, some items, some let's say some elements can be evolved to. In fact, here is something that is I always use. It was you know, quite, because you can understand how complex and complicated at the same time is to design a gaming simulation. Usually we have a real world and there are different designers, and the designer have their own view, so they design a model. So there is a player's own view when they test the game, and so you have to cope with this complexity, and you have to compose and recompose in a process of design. So before to start, we have to understand then the design of a gaming simulation requires to define a theme or a problem that is important in order to understand, let's say, how to deal with the complexity of the model. Here there is one of the area that is that the gaming simulation is used when you have to do, for instance, with the process of participation or community visioning. Usually you have different ways to do it. It could be that you work with people to design some cognitive mapping, then you apply a gaming simulation. The gaming simulation, with the gaming simulation, you obtain alternative scenarios, and then it helps community visioning. And this is a cycle that, let's say, show to you that we have no boundaries and we are in a blurring situation where, you know, everything is open and there is no definition or, let's say, open, close end. When we talk about game, we talk about, especially in our sector, that is urban planning, urban design, we talk about what is so-called role play and case study and how we use it. The role play is quite important because here you can see that when you play a role, what you can have is to observing yourself. You have information and your personal expectation about society, but in the same times you observe yourself, but you watch other people's behaviors and actions, and you understand interpersonal relations and the ways of living, and you watch also the world in general, in the physical terms, but in social life in particular. So you can cope with the data that you can obtain and with the knowledge that you can get from the others. In the case studies, let's say, case study is also important in the gaming simulation because it allows the identification with specific persons and or specific roles. And in the case study, you can put and set what can be the dynamics or the motions into the dynamic evolutionary perspectives. And in the case study, you can separate what is theory from is practice or generalization. So this is one of the last but not least aims of a gaming simulation, that is to design, as I said before, you can start from scenario, but you can have as a purpose to design different scenarios, alternative scenarios. So when you do this, you can have this kind of aim, that is to allow the creation through different participation of different players, participants, and let's say outline possible futures of scenario. Basically, gaming simulation help us as designer and the possible participants. They could be other designers, or they could be different experts, or they could be people, I mean population, to analyze or to confront in a problematic situation. And at the same time, we understand the complexity. This is what I use usually to design a gaming simulation. We try to work with the experts, and they design the possible, let's call them events, but elements of the system. And then we submit it to the review of two different groups of people. One are the administrators or political sector. The others are the, let's say, so-called stakeholders. Then we have the starting scenario, let's say. And the starting scenario is submitted to the action of the players, and then you have this kind of outcome. to design a gaming simulation or to use gaming simulation allow us also to build and share a common language in order, to solve the same problem. We have to avoid misunderstandings and to understand different views and perspectives and to integrate them. We can even, decide to avoid, to accept, to ban, whatever, but we have a common arena where we can discuss of this. And gaming simulation is the way or the tool that allowed you to build this kind of things. So what is gaming simulation? After 20 minutes, we can go to the third definition. The concept that I use of gaming simulation is the one that is using the attribute of Gestalt. In the Gestalt that was Dick Duke defined gaming simulation as a Gestalt in 1974, includes a significant model of reality, that is the simulation, put in action by the rules of the game, and by decision of the participants that are the player of the rules. Let's say this is the quotation by Dick here that I like is a sort of referred system will have a series of, in addition, to this system, we will have a series of scenarios depicting possible courses of actions. Various decision makers will be represented by human acting out significant roles. By acting, and this is important, out what if situation, alternative futures can be explored. This is, let's say, the way where we start to define gaming simulation. So gaming simulation is the fact of decision made through a role-playing subject to rules. That means that we have a sort of more balanced mixture of role, simulation, and game, where simulation is, let's say, it makes the statistic model, that is the unit, into dynamic situation. The game, that is a set of rules, which means less than a real game, that means play, and role, that is part of a function played in a dynamic situation subjected to rules. So if you remember what I said before about role play, you'll see that role play turns a game into a played game. Why I'm saying that? That is the big question for you. Which is the difference between play and game? This is a question for the audience. Any answer?
Paula, sorry, play as a noun or as a verb? Play.
Sorry, game?
Play. I'm asking, play as a noun or as a verb, to play?
Ah, yes.
The activity.
No. Yes, as a noun. But you can use to game, to play.
I think game has strict rules, or actually has some structure, has some rules, and play, you can play anytime you want, and whatever makes or causes you pleasure, it can be a play for you.
Let's say that even this is a good answer. It's excellent that you say every time you want and gives pleasure. Both you can game and play, you can do every time you want, both. Play, you do only for pleasure. This is, the main, to play, let's say, is some natural activity, as let's say, Gregory Bateson and Margaret Mead pointed out, is a sort of Uzinga, of course, all the other people that was talking about to play in the human life, the anthropologist in a word, is a natural activity. In fact, no one can force you to play. Someone can not force, but someone can introduce or ask you to game. I'm not talking about, this is quite important because in the, what we are doing right now is to use and to talk about the use of gaming simulation in participation in urban design and planning. And so I'm sorry, Vera, you made the good, let's say, the good definition. Is anyone else that has different ideas? No? Okay. So why being an urban planner, I'm using gaming simulation, not played simulation. Because Vera pointed out that there are set of rules that could be, doesn't matter, they can be predefined rules or rules defined during the action of the activity by the actors, by the players. But anyhow, we are talking about something that is, let's say, a little bit more rigid than the free play. So when we talk about urban design, when is often, you know, is a common, actually nowadays everybody in the last 20 years is using the word participation, participatory design, participatory planning, civic interaction, and so on. But this is a big problem, because the first that we have to face is regarding the language. When we talk about participation in urban planning and urban design, we are facing the fact that we are mainly, allow me to be really, let's say, banal, really basic, saying that we are talking about two different kind of languages. One is what we call experts and specialized languages, and the other that are not experts. And we have to exchange information between these two, let's say, languages. And but in this case, there is not balance between the two of communication between the two groups, and we have a lot of obstacles to overcome. And here is where, you know, I'm sorry, because this is and here is where we can you know, try to find, not we have to try to find how to improve the way how we can interact between these two levels of languages. And so the first thing that we talk is about to increase the so-called bottom-up approach. And the first thing that we do is to improve responsibility. Because yesterday we heard about the fact who is responsible for what, who can decide for what. So we have to understand this. This is the first step that we have to take into consideration, thinking about interactions among what is not expert and expert groups. And we have to, let's say, rethink all the way how we think the urban systems through living, probably, what is the engineering type of knowledge of urban planning, to what is called by Bateson macro cognitive processes. So to look more to this kind of process. So we design a gaming simulation, and this is, let's say, I leave you room for the question, but you design gaming simulation as, you know, model of the world, a model of the system, but you design also gaming simulation in order to solve problems. So as contingency to solve some, not only to solve some problems, also to arise some potential characteristics of a territory, of a land, of a city. Why we use gaming simulation? This is something that I try to sum up among different goals that we can have and what we can expect as a result, but we will go through more deeply in tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And because I'm not going to finish to end of the lecture today, as I took 30 minutes, by the way. But anyhow, quickly, when we use urban gaming simulation, we want to stimulate involvement, to stimulate communication, participation, trying to improve the level of information, and also the training of trainers or people, doesn't matter, to research, to plan the plan, and also to plan, but in the sense to evaluate the plan. So the expected results are really different, but what I want to show to you quickly are some quick examples. One is, I'm really fond of it. I know that some of you know because I presented often, but I told you that I'm working on disaster mitigation, or the sector of, let's say, risk in general. This is an example where we applied the gaming simulation after the earthquake in Emilia. In 2000, everybody knows, I mean, the well-known worldwide is the earthquake of, last earthquake of Abruzzo in central Italy, that were really terrible. But one unexpected, because it was unexpected, was the earthquake in 2012. Unexpected because, just to give you the information, all the map of vulnerability, exposure, were, and the severity were under, let's say, redevelopment in that, before that time. So this earthquake destroyed one of the most important part for the economy of Italian economy. 2.1 of the national PIL is there. And this is what happened in a small center that is, among others, of Emilia, that is Novi di Modena, where we work. So this is a work done by Margherita Chiappe, was my master student. This was her research. She worked there, and we analyzed the evolution of the public space and the built space, of course, and also we compare with the population that, you know, in Emilia, according with its role in the economy, this, I mean, healthy economy, there is an increasing of population, demographic increment. Sorry, I'm lose myself sometimes. So after the earthquake, this, you can see what are called red areas. And the relation with the public space, the structure is quite clear. We have two main axes in the city, and you know, it was reducing slowly in 2 years. The red zone, the red area, decreased, but there was something that is quite important that happened all the time. That is, the SISMA produced a sort of loss of identity or disorientation, that was increased by the fact that they cannot have access to the historical center, and in particular to the Piazza Primo Maggio, that is the main square. And this is why the population itself started to talk about, we want back our own public space. That is quite important. They were not talking only about their own town, their own home, but they're talking about their own public space. This is really important, talking in terms of participation, because, and another fact is that the regional law established that the reconstruction plan cannot start without a process of participation, because what they want to have is a sort of ricostruzione partecipata, reconstruction participated. I don't know if it's in Italian is okay. In English is okay. But so the main question was how to regeneralize, to revitalize, reconquer the public space, and especially to have back your own identity after let's say after the earthquake. And of course, this is, if we talk about resilience, another word that is magic. But what was with the previous let's say intention by people that they want to have their own, again back their own public space, let's start from public spaces. So that was the starting point for all the process. Here you can see how we think about it, what we can have as a regeneration plan. So we built, this was also a matter of competition, and they asked us to give the work of the research. But what I want to go back to go through is that, of course, we have this plan, but one of the items that were destroyed by the earthquake was a school, an elementary school. And the only thing that was preserved in this elementary school that collapsed completely was the tree that was in front of the school, that you will see will become not only the symbol of the park of the school, but anyhow, the school was rebuilt, but let's say the outside environment was like this. So the school itself wanted to redesign to have a new park, a new playground, but they want to do with the kids. So we start, let's say, a long process that in 2014 was from January to April, and there were 40 hours of gaming simulation and design workshop. The students were pupils from, I mean, 8 to 9 years old, 6 classes, and we have 3 meetings also with parents and teachers, and 2 public hearings, and also a meeting with a sort of party public picnic, urban picnic with people in order to understand the name of the place. So we try to understand how the kids use the space before and after. So what they were using, you know, after, it was like green areas and parking areas. And we want to understand how were the let's say the features and the qualities of that space for them important. So we start with the City of Emotion, that is a gaming simulation that I designed with Beniamino Sidotti, and architect Monia Guarino was the person who ran these experiments. The City of Emotions, all the places and spaces we think generates emotions. or are associated with emotions. So we ask people to draw some maps related. For instance, this is friendship neighborhoods, but it can be of different. So from city of emotion, we start to we shifted to park of emotions. And we identified 3 phases: identification of the feeling emotion, composition of the different corners, discussion, and evaluation of the final scenario. You can see it was, to think about, it was quite sensitive, because the first phase was to work on emotion given to a future life after reconstruction. And here you have some of the results from boredom, sadness, anger, fear, scare, terror, and serendipity, and joy, and surprise, and mystery, freedom. So they divided into groups. They draw a map of the corner, how they want to have their own corner. They made a presentation, they discussed, and they discussed in the second phase how to put together all these different corners, in which kind of, let's say, shape, as to put together as a star, are distributed along the park or merged in a different one. And the final one was to merge and to start to design a physical model according with this. As I told you, we had an urban picnic to name the park, where people show, I mean, the kids share with all the citizens were invited. And symbolically, we used the main square that you can see was still not really open, and the name chosen was, I think you can find, really naive, but it was as a combination, Parco Baleno as a rainbow and park. And what is important is that the kids follow every phase, from the gaming simulation to the realization of the park, to the use of the park, because they really, think it as a new beginning for them. Another important thing that I forgot to mention is that the kids with pneumonia design different furnitures for the urban furnitures for the park, and not only some companies, local companies, realize them, but they are also put it in their catalog. So it's something that is dragging in the so-called integrated experience. So what was the most important aim of the park was to overcome social trauma generated by earthquake, was to reactivate places, give and creating new reference points for the community life, enhance the creative competences for the children, accommodating in the park. They're, often in the participation, and especially with kids, what we do is that, yes, that's a sort of dream book, and then we arrange how to make this dream real. That was not the case. I have to say that the landscape designers were really nice, because it's really difficult to see your work of design destroyed by let's say, the critics of the kids. But they were really nice, and they really understood how to include in the project, in the design of the park, the original emotions without to manipulate them. What was important is that the challenges, let's say, a game is wonderful if it's a short game. It's not if you play a long game. because you are losing your attention. Maybe it becomes boring, maybe you understand how it's going on. So that was really a challenge to let's say to deal with, and we kept along these months till the end. What were the strengths is that the guidelines that we used to design the park were shared and decided by the entire community, not only by the community of the school, but by the people, at least from all the families. There were the proposals were original but feasible, and there was a care, really have to say, really a big attention to the future users and different abilities. And okay, I already told you about the materials and the furnitures that were, emphasized by the designers. So we increase somehow cooperation and collaboration among citizens, different targets of the society, and we apply the guidelines to others. So as Laura is warning me that we are going to have, I'm going to the end. I designed different game simulation in different environment, in different, not only environmental education, but also for citizens' participation, as I show you. One of the games that I designed in 2007 was used for the International Conference on Climate Change. I found, here is something that I found is still on use. And we design also something else like app for disaster and so on. What we have to keep in mind is that we have to be as a game designer, a sort of mediator, negotiator, facilitator, as all the designer, normally the good designer do. And I like to remind us that the facilitator should show respect, establish rapport with others, abandon preconceptions, hand over the stick, watch, listen, learn from mistakes, be self-critical, self-aware, be flexible, support and share, and be honest. All these activities are important if you are especially dealing with a gaming simulation. So thank you for your attention with the last quotation. I'm sorry that I'm quoting too much people that I like and love, like Friedrich Dürrenmatt, and that in 21st Point on the Physicist wrote that in the 16th, 17th, and 18th, that the content of physics concern only physicists, it affects concern everyone, that what affects everyone can only be solved by everyone, that every attempt by an individual to solve on his own what concerns everyone is doomed to failure. So thank you very much. If you have any question, I'm here.
Paula, I would like, if I can first for the question, thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I would like to ask, as I have been, for this project, as I have been researching the transformation of industrial heritage, and in the area around Banská Bystrica where we live, there is plenty. Actually, the Middle Slovakia is a leader in industrial heritage. Of course, many of them are abandoned, and the problem is, as we know, with transformation of industrial heritage, is to find some good idea what to do with this, because not every factory can be turned to some exhibition place or whatever. Do you see, because I can see the chance, I don't know how it would be, if it would be possible to organize something, the game simulation as you have presented it. Can it be a solution for local people, little villages, to find out or to find an idea what to do with this abandoned industrial heritage? Or do you have some?
It is possible.
Yeah,
it is
but
possible because I mean, probably is the let's say the less painful way to do it, to discuss. Because if you you know, you think about public hearing, for instance, let's say giving the village, invite all the population and see, you know, this is the place. What do you think about? How do you, what you think could be put it in that place? It means a lot of work on combining all the vision, trying to avoid the conflicts, try to keep out of the arena something that has nothing to do with the arena itself, you know. So let's call what you defined before, predefined, let's say, set of rules, something that you have to enter, a word where you have to enter in, follow the rules, where you know that you can change something. You bring there, of course, yourself with your beliefs, your personality, etc. But at the same time, you have a goal that is predefined, and you have to understand how to reach that goal. It makes your task as designer, I don't want to say easier, is more heavy, but is more fruitful, is more successful. And it, once, you know, is reached the solution, as you know, for the kids, give me the example for the kids, there could be others, but for that one, we can go to the classes and say, design your own map. Oh, how beautiful. And then design your own, and then, oh, how beautiful. And then, okay, they want to have no much trees or many trees. They want to have flowers, no flowers, etc. And the designer do this. The result is easier to reach, I mean, in a short time, but is more disputable, is more, you know, it brings more conflict instead of sharing. In the gaming simulation, you can share. I don't know if I make myself
I do understand.
you enough.
I do understand. Yeah, I just try to imagine all the village people to come to some public place to share their ideas through the games. Do you need to be a game designer, educated person, or you do? Because now I try to imagine myself or someone.
You do, but if you are in this need, Vera, we can just organize when this pandemic is over. Not
For
before,
sure,
because I have to
for
go
sure.
to Thailand. But I will, I mean, I'm off in Krakow. I can come to Banska, and we can organize just 1 week of, you know, just to talk and organize things.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I would
Because
like.
I'm just asked by the Ministry of Environment in Thailand to do this because they are working on future city. Personally, I'm so afraid of it, you know, because it's try to train the trainers.
I understand. No, it's not easy. I can understand the thing.
But I feel, I mean, please, we can just talk about it. It's easy.
Yeah,
it's
thank
easy.
you.
It's
Cheers.
easy.
Cheers. Thank you.
And we can drag someone that has knowledge also, I think.
Wow,
some
that
of
would
my
be wonderful.
colleagues
That
there.
would be wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other question? No. Okay. So I'm sorry because as I told you, as usual, and there were Laura just sending me messages, Professor, 10 minutes. You know, when you enter in the word of the game, you never stop to talk about, to play and game. So what we are going to do tomorrow, we are trying to go to do tomorrow, because I want to have at least 2 hours tomorrow and the day after tomorrow with you, but in more interactive way. What I'm asking you is each team to think about a situation where we can think a use application of gaming simulation. Slovakia, we understood, could be, let's say, industrial landscape or this kind of topic, but there could be even others. For instance, there is the problem of rural areas or whatever. So each of you can think about it. So tomorrow the lecture is not going to be a lecture. It's going to be interaction between us.
Sharing the ideas, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. No other questions? I think that we can. Lucia, where are you?
I am here.
Okay, so
here.
I think we can leave to you the.
Yes, we will right now, we will just stop the recording, and this is the moment where everyone has a well-deserved coffee break. For just a small word for the Krakow team, there will be a meeting at 12 in front of Galeria Kazimierz from the side of Masarska Street. And then I would like to wish everyone fruitful and inspirational explorations today. I would like to warmly thank Jana for her very good and a very well structured lecture that I think has given all of us a great overview on the topic. And I think you've done a great job, because this is the moment where we can really see what the areas of the topic that you've chosen are. And I would like to thank you, Paola, for leading the first simulation gaming explanatory session. And yes, this is it for today. Again, thank you all participants, thank you lecturers, and I hope tomorrow we meet at 9 during the day coordinated by the University of Deusto in Bilbao. And in the meantime, please enjoy today in your own independent explorations. And thank you again. This is it. This is it for today. Yes, Paola, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just want to remind you that we are going to have a lecture by Dr. Lucia Patrizia Vanning from UCL. She's an historian. We are going to record it, and we will leave to you, of course. I mean, if someone is interested. So we will leave the recorded lecture to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We will, in the end of the summer school, we will also inform you about where all the files are stored, how you can access them, and then for how long they would be available, so that everyone can really download what they want to and have access to everything that we've worked upon. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Enjoy today's afternoon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Goodbye.